Tonight on Top Story, 15 civil society organizations demand immediate suspension of the implementation of the Japan Minerals Royalty Agreement, describing it as a non-transparent abuse of the state's resources and an elite capture of Ghana's gold resources.
To suspend the implementation of the Mineral Income Investment Funds Act until all documents relating to the establishment of the special purpose vehicle and its beneficial owners have been disclosed.
We'll hear how and why the CSOs are raising questions about the involvement of the senior minister's son in the deal.
I do not think that Kofi Osafo-Maafo is the only investment expert in Ghana. Did we open it up to competition?
That's coming up here on Top Story, brought to you by Gassim, the nation builder, and Vodafone. The future is exciting. Ready? And tonight, 15 civil society organizations have joined forces to demand immediate suspension of the implementation of the Japan Minerals Royalty Agreement. Now, they describe the deal as a non-transparent abuse of state resources and an elite capture of Ghana's gold resources. Parliament approved the deal earlier this month to allow government to monetize expected resources from gold royalties in exchange for a 500 million lump sum to invest in developmental initiatives. Addressing a media briefing in Accra, the CSOs appealed directly to President Akufo-Addo to intervene and stop the deal. Dr. Steve Mantia of ISADC, who spoke on behalf of the CSOs, is asking Ghanaians to stand up and defend the country's interests.
We take this opportunity to call on His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo to 1. Acknowledge that though the Minerals Income Investment Fund and its special purpose vehicle may be legal without public input, it fundamentally goes against his pact with the Ghanaian people, particularly the mining communities, to cede 20% of mineral royalties to develop the communities. 2, to suspend the implementation of the Mineral Income Investment Funds Act until all documents relating to the establishment of the special purpose vehicle and its beneficial owners have been disclosed. 4, to recognize that by its current approach to the implementation of the Mineral Income Investment Fund Act, government may appear to be encouraging citizens to transact business in tax havens. Ours is a struggle against the elite capture of resources that commonly belong to all Ghanaians. And we call on every one of us, regardless of our political persuasion, to join hands in safeguarding the national interest.
That's not all. Dr. Mantel says the agreement goes against the NPP's manifesto in its 2016, which promises an efficient management of the country's natural resources.
In essence, Parliament has agreed to cede Ghana's royalties to a company to undertake investments at its pleasure. We take this opportunity to also draw the attention of the government to its own 2016 manifesto commitment in respect of the mineral sector. And here we refer to page 27 under Natural Resources, Land, Forestry and Mining, paragraph F of the MPP manifesto, where it pledged to ensure that mineral revenues are efficiently managed for the benefit of Ghanaians and to enact, I emphasize, and to enact a consolidated mineral revenue management law similar to the Petroleum Revenue Management Act 2011, Act 815, to guide the use of mineral revenues in strategic sectors of the economy. We, however, regret to note that what we are being served and against which we are holding this press conference is a far cry from what was promised.
That's Steve Mantiao of ISODEC addressing that press conference on behalf of the 15 civil society organizations who've raised concerns about the implementation of the Ejapa Minerals Royalty Agreement. My colleague Joseph Opoku-Gakpo joins me in studio. He was at that press conference. He's joined us with details. Now, which are the specific CSOs behind this push?
So you heard that of ISODEC, as Dr. Steve Mantiao, who represents that entity, was actually addressing the media. The Africa Center for Energy Policy, he said they are part of this. We'll be hearing from Ben Boachi later, as you rightly indicated. The Citizens Movement Against Corruption are part of this. Civil Society Platform on Oil and Gas, Pemplas Bites, Oil Watch Ghana, IDEC, the Center for Democratic Development Ghana, CDD, as well as Imani Ghana, and also the CSO's Open Licensing Monitoring Group. They are some of the organizations who are part of this. Okay.
Now, the CSOs had some specific concerns about these deals, 5 of them. Let's go through them. Which one is the first one?
First of all, they're asking a few questions. They're asking, are the managers and directors of Ejapa not politically exposed persons, and were they not selected through a non-competitive process? Again, with regards to that, they say it based their imagination as to why an entity, in this case Ejapa, without a corporate strategy and approved spending plan, will proceed to raise $1 billion and seed $500 million of that to government in such indecent haste, especially when there is no known national emergency to warrant such rush. So that's the first question they're asking about the managers being politically exposed persons. And then they're asking, were the transaction advisors and legal intermediaries not handpicked by the government, and are they not politically exposed persons? They're asking that, what is the dividend policy on the investment being sought on the London Stock Exchange? And they think that this is a crucial part of the entire transaction, which will tell Ghanaians how investors will benefit from the royalties of the state. They say this will allow the public to see whether indeed the deal is beneficial or not, and they are shocked that Parliament showed no interest in this and rather waived its oversight as far as the issue having to do with the dividend policy is concerned.
And their fourth concern?
Their fourth concern is they're asking that to convince Ghanaians that this is a good deal, don't we need to know how Ejapa investments compare with other investment options? And you know, there have been talk that Ghana has done a lot of things when it comes to monetizing natural resources for possible future benefits. With regards to the Rose Fund and even with regards to the Bui Dam, specific resources were actually taken as a lump sum and subsequently paid over time. So they're asking that, couldn't those other options have been considered with regards to this specific Ejapa arrangement? And the fifth question they're raising is, the Ejapa royalties deal is going to invest risk-free royalties in investments unknown to the state of Ghana. Don't we need to know the level of risk as far as the royalties are concerned, and what they'll be exposed to, and how those risks will be mitigated by the managers of Ejapa? They're asking, what will Ejapa be investing the $500 million in? And they think that all these questions are things that Parliament should have looked at, but unfortunately they didn't, and they are concerned.
Some valid questions there from the CSOs. ASAP, Ben Boachi, Executive Director of ASAP, will be joining us shortly. Then we'll get more details into this. But Dr. Steve Mantiao is describing the involvement of the son of the senior minister, Kofi Osafo-Maafo, and cousin of the president, Gabia Sariotre-Darko, in the Ejapa deal as a conflict of interest. Deputy Finance Minister Charles Boahene has been defending the decision.
Where is the conflict? The suggestion is that a company is being set up to do business with the government of Ghana, and the president's cousin or nephew is participating in...
He managed to be a partner in a law firm. In fact, he's not even the partner on the transaction. The partner on the transaction is Neo Dote, who is also a partner in that law firm. And also, more importantly, that company is actually the local partner to the British law firm that we engaged. So it's a British law firm that they are the local partners of. So when we engage the British law firm, they say, hey, look, these are the guys we use in Ghana for these transactions. Kofi Osafo-Maafo is the Deputy Director General at SNIT. Before that, he was a big mining analyst in the City of London on gold mining and energy stocks. And he's been in that business for the last 30 years. So when we were setting this thing up, we asked him to come and help us as a consultant to structure it, because he knows best what the investor base are looking for in London, what they will demand from a company like this, how to structure it, even in helping to identify the board members and so forth and so on. And I must say that he's been an absolute help, you know. And if you look at his qualifications, you know, I'm so proud to have people like that, Ghanaians like that, with this kind of expertise and knowledge who can help us set up this thing. It just goes to show that it's not every time that we need to go and hire some white boy to come and help us with these things. We have the talent right here.
We'll hear more from the Deputy Finance Minister in that interview with Kojo Yankson shortly, where he talks about why government decides to invest in a tax haven. But Dr. Steve Mantel says the involvement of these politically exposed persons in the Ejapa deal is bad for the country.
I don't know of any national emergency that warrants that we should rush the process to raise funds for development. After all, in these next few months, we're only preparing to go into elections. No meaningful development projects can happen. When you have intellectuals, by virtue of their position in the governance architecture, taking advantage and arrogating themselves benefits that should ordinarily go to every Ghanaian, there is no representation from all other stakeholders. It's just people related to the government or to the president, and people who, by virtue of their profession, very astute lawyers and the rest, who have a stake and are benefiting from this transaction. This is what we call electoral.
For example, for you, Africa Legal Associates owned by Gabriel Chidaku should probably not have been part of the lawyers that oversaw this transaction. We've seen that on the front page of the document.
They should not be banned from participating. No, that's not the point we are making. But if they want to participate, it should be an open, competitive process. And if they come up as the best firm to represent the state, no qualms about it.
You've had names like Kofi Asafo as the people currently managing Ejapa. Do you have any concerns about that?
Precisely, if it's the case, then of course it amounts to conflict of interest, and it amounts to what we call politically exposed persons by virtue of his relationship to the senior minister.
The defense from government is that this is a mineral investment expert who's worked in different parts of the world, and they felt they needed to go for him to help the nation rather than relying on a foreign consultant. That's the defense coming from
that argument does not wash. I do not think that Kofi Asafo is the only investment expert in Ghana. Did we open it up to competition? Government could have advertised that we're looking for consultants well-versed in transactions of this nature and select from among the best through competition.
So for all these people should step back from Africa Legal Associates to Kofi Asafo in order to allow for the processes, or the corrections can be done even as they still remain.
I see a serious corruption risk here. So we need to pull the brakes and make sure we open it up. And you open the process up to at least some validation and some endorsement before you proceed.
Dr. Steve Mantel. Meanwhile, former Finance Minister Seth Tekpe has been speaking also on this particular issue. He spoke on the Super Morning Show and he kicked against the deal. Mr. Tekpe, he's also a tax professional himself, and he says it sends a very bad signal.
Well, we are sending a bad signal. First of all, you are under an AML, what you call it, a money laundering watch, which may be the result of your individuals or businesses, or not necessarily those belonging to Ghana, but even foreign ones using Ghana as a conduit for tax transactions and investments. And then the state itself will substantiate the reason why you are under the money laundering watch.
That's Seth Tekpe. So the concerns, like I said earlier, has also been raised about why government would invest in a tax haven, for instance. We're still working the lines to get a government spokesperson to speak on these 5 issues that have been raised by the CSOs. Of course, Ben Wachi also joins us on the line. But let's quickly hear from the Deputy Finance Minister, Charles Boahene, speaking on that earlier.
If you are listing a company on the London Stock Exchange, first place, the decision was to list on the London Stock Exchange, because the London Stock Exchange gave us access to the widest database of investors and investors who invest in gold. The asset management firms that are domiciled in London and that invest in gold mining companies have billions of dollars under management. And so if you wanted access to the widest pool of investors, which would drive the value of your company up based on your essential elements of demand and supply, then London made a lot of sense. If I'm going to list on the London Stock Exchange, where is the best place to have the company incorporated? Either in London itself or in a jurisdiction that companies that usually list on the London Stock Exchange are incorporated in. London was out of the question because if it was incorporated in London, it will be susceptible to the London tax laws, which meant that it will be taxed even before you could pay out dividends to your shareholders. So then that was out of the question. So we looked around, and Jersey, which is a bulwark of Jersey, which is a protectorate or whatever of the UK, was the next choice. And when we looked at it, it was also the most tax efficient choice because companies incorporated in Jersey do not pay tax. And the issue with it is that, you see, royalties is a tax in itself. So you wanted a situation to avoid a situation where you were paying a tax on a tax. So that's why we needed to find a tax efficient haven where we didn't have to pay taxes, so that we are not paying a tax on a tax.
So that's the Deputy Finance Minister, Charles Boahin. Let's bring in the Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, Mr. Ben Boache. We are grateful for your time here on Top Story. So first off, you've heard from the Deputy Finance Minister explaining why the choice of Jersey, for instance, you do not pay tax. And the explanation we've always heard, at least from yesterday, is that royalty is already a tax and you do not have to pay tax on tax. So the explanation that Deputy Finance Minister gives you, does it answer some of the questions that you have?
Thank you very much, Emefa. I think it doesn't. I mean, this is government, okay? The contention of the world today is how do we support governments to ensure that companies don't hide in tax havens, but rather contribute to the development of their home countries. You know, so this is a peculiar situation where you have a country deciding to patronize tax haven. So it's not a corporate entity which has a free will. You and I can go and register in a tax haven and do business. So you have a country that is deciding to go and hide and do business. So beyond it being possible and legal for you to register and do business in a tax haven, there are moral questions to ask when a country decide to go and hide in a tax haven. On top of that, if a Japa decides to do business in Ghana, the agreement that we have signed is that it is exempt from paying tax in Ghana. And that sends a very terrible signal. For example, we've been hearing that a Japa will be investing in gold. If a Japa comes to invest in gold in Ghana and it cannot pay tax to the government of Ghana, what signal are you sending to the mining companies that are operating in Ghana, in whom we also own shares? So Ghana government owns shares in Newmont, in Anglo Gold, in all the gold concessions. What signal are you sending to them? That one company, by virtue of Ghana government investing in, can operate without paying tax to the Ghana government. So it's a very terrible signal to send. Again, what you are telling Ghanaians is that if you have a business, you can actually, sell off and go and buy shares in a Japa and not pay tax because a Japa is exempt from paying tax and fold your arms. So you do not expect government to follow corporate entities and their, shady deals to avoid paying tax to do same. And this is a novel thing for Ghana to do, actually, to go and hide in a tax haven, and do business, where all countries are united against the fight for companies to actually pay tax to their home country. So it's a major decision that Ghana has taken to be part of this kind of process.
Well, you raised 5 pertinent questions that you're hoping that you get answers to. Let's bring in the Information Minister, Kojo Ponkruma. We're grateful for your time here on Top Story. This is a matter that you've spoken extensively on, but the CSOs today, 15 of them, they've raised a number of concerns. You just heard Ben Boache asking why government registered a Japa in a tax haven. For them, it sends a bad signal, more like you're hiding to do business. You have an explanation to that?
Thanks. I haven't heard the full breadth of issues because I'm in the constituency now, but specific to what you have alluded to and the general interest, may I say, from the civil society groups, we are open to having engagements with them to provide some more clarity with the kind of issues that they may not have clarity on. We are not hiding in a tax haven to do business. If we were, we will not be taking all the documentation associated with it, the structure of the transaction and its details, into the Parliament of Ghana to openly and fully discuss and debate it. So we are not hiding. There's a reason for which the offshore company or the international arm of this company is registered in the United States of America and in a tax haven.
But we've heard the minority, for instance, during this whole discussion, say that you did not bring the whole prospectus for them to scrutinize.
But the prospectus is not the same as the reason for registering the company in the US of A, which is the claim they are making that because the company is registered in the US of A, it is an attempt to hide and do business. That's nothing to do with the prospectus. I'm saying that with the greatest of respect, there's a reason for which the company is registered or domiciled, or that international company is domiciled in the US of A in a tax haven. It is because you want to attract investors with tax incentives so that they have clarity that, first of all, the money that they are bringing into that company to buy minority shares in that company will not be subject to tax. There's nothing criminal about not being subject to tax. Even here in Ghana, on a regular basis, in our parliament, there are several transactions that we waive off taxes. Here, what we are saying is that the monies that they are bringing into that corporate vehicle, which money is the front-loaded fund that comes to the local company and then to the Mineral Income Investment Fund, is not subject to tax. It is an incentive like all the others that we do here. Number two, the returns on the royalties in itself in the first place constitute a tax on the mining activity that has taken place. And as we have tried to explain since yesterday, you do not tax a tax. You do not tax a tax.
That has been made clear. But is government not worried about the impression that it gives, more like encouraging individuals to also go save their money in safe havens if there's nothing wrong with it?
No, impressions can be corrected. Impressions can be wrong. So if somebody has a wrong or an erroneous impression, the onus is on us to correct it. So first of all, company registered in a tax haven is not a criminal offense. It is not an attempt to hide. That's why we brought all the details out to Parliament. It is to offer a tax incentive to the potential investors in that company. The money they put there is money that comes through the local subsidiary, which is 100% owned by MIIF. MIIF is GOG. And so it is that money that we are attracting into the country that is tax-free. Number two, the royalties and the dividends on the royalties that will be coming to that entity will not be taxed because royalties constitute a tax themselves, like we have said over and over again. So you do not tax a tax. That is the second reason. But if they proceed to invest, the third level, they proceed to invest the residual amount into new mining concessions or any kind of business, that will be taxed. That extra income will be taxed. So I think the first question of tax is something that it is okay to have concerns about, but as I've explained, and hopefully if we get an opportunity to engage with our colleagues in civil society who may have some apprehensions, it can be explained to them quite well. And I do believe these are people who understand many of these transactions. I do believe that when we sit down with them and they have an opportunity also to be taken through the full breadth of the structure, they will not see anything wrong with the current structure. This is not different from the structure operated by other mineral royalty companies in other parts of the world. Admittedly, this is the first in Africa, and so in these early stages, some persons may have apprehensions about it. But if we do have engagements with them, I am optimistic that they will come to a point of understanding with us.
Well, with that said, the fundamental issue for them is that this deal must be suspended before any other thing happens.
The reason being?
The 5 issues that they've raised, for instance, I would want to find out what is the dividend policy on the investment being sought on the London Stock Exchange, for instance.
They are not there yet. They are now, because this transaction is in stages. In 2018, we passed the enabling legislation. In 2018. Today, in 2020, we have constituted an agreement which we have brought to the Parliament of Ghana, which Parliament of Ghana has approved. This agreement now affords them an opportunity to go and float the minority shares of a JAPA on the London Stock Exchange and concurrently on the Ghana Stock Exchange. Shareholders will have an agreement. In this agreement, they will have a dividend policy, in which dividend policy the government of Ghana or ARG, which is the Ghanaian company representing MIIF, will have the majority stake. There's a shareholders agreement that they will have an opportunity to go through. There is also a residual investment structure, which allows the company that out of the part of the shares that have not been floated or the residual royalties that will be coming in, not all of it is going to be given in a dividend policy. There will be a part that will now be used for future investment into mineral concessions in Ghana and across the world. They will agree on that one as well. Why don't we give them the opportunity to sit down and do all of this and show it to us?
Okay.
I believe that if we give them an opportunity to go through this transaction and share the details with all of us, we will have a very clear understanding of what the dividend policy is, how much money they even intend finally to raise when they do a deal roadshow. What, like I said, what the dividend policy is, and then also what the residual investment policy.
But by then, would have been far into that deal. So for the CSOs, the 15 of them, you have just agreed that there must be further consultation on this. Then we'll all understand. But once you do
please
that,
don't get me wrong.
But once you mentioned that, yes, of course, you would consult if they want to do that. You would do that. Isn't that what you said?
Please don't get me wrong. What we are saying, I mean, ordinarily, when the government of Ghana, with the greatest of respect, is going about its transactions and goes to Parliament and gets approval, it does not necessarily go out there to consult CSOs. In all humility, today a number of CSOs are suggesting that they would like to get some understanding of the transaction. And what I have said is that we are open to engage with them. I have not said that we're going to stop and go and consult them per se. But while all of this is happening, it will not necessarily be far off in the deal that something irreparable would have happened. If we allow them, as they are going through this transaction, now to start a deal, to put a deal on the table, and to engage prospective investors into the company, and these investors come and buy a minority shareholding, and then they get to a point where they are structuring a shareholders agreement, which includes things like a dividend policy, things like what I would call the residual investment policy. If any of those things at that point is untoward, assuming they came up with a dividend policy that says that they should squander 100% of the royalties that are coming in, or that the royalties that are coming in, the residual royalties that are coming in, they should give 90% of it to the minority shareholding, all of us will raise red flags. But we are not even there yet. Let them have the opportunity to even have a deal roadshow, have prospective investors at the table, take a decision, start a shareholders conversation, because you have a shareholders agreement which would include things like this, dividend policy, etc. And then we can raise red flags. We are not there, and nothing irreparable is happening. Currently, all that is happening is the structure that is being discussed.
So it doesn't look like this deal will be suspended along the line at all. But this question they raise also...
I have not even said that. I haven't said it doesn't look like it will be suspended.
I'm asking the question. You can answer that, sir.
Okay, very well. I have not said that it can or cannot be suspended. I have explained that if our colleagues on the other side require some clarity, we are happy to engage with them and provide them with that clarity. As things stand now, nothing deep or irreparable has even happened. So if by the time we finish with this engagement with them, possible engagement with them, they themselves are clear in their mind that, oh, these apprehensions were genuine to have, but really nothing untoward is happened, I think we're happy and hopeful to go forward.
Let me put directly to you some of the questions they posed also.
They're
asking what will a JAPA be investing the $500 million in?
A JAPA will be raising about $500 million as front-loaded funds to the government of Ghana. A JAPA will not be investing and it's not $500 million. They've given a ballpark figure. The estimate is between 500 and 750, because for the 16 mining royalties that they are looking at, the back of the envelope calculation, net present value calculation, the minority proportion of it that they are hoping to sell on the stock exchange is what is being estimated as between 500 and 750. That 500 and 750 is not for JAPA to invest. It comes to the MIIF. It comes to the government of Ghana. It is not a loan. It is a share flotation that comes to the government of Ghana.
And what will government be using it for?
It will come to the MIIF, and MIIF
has a whole structure for how it intends to utilize its funds. I'm sure the board chairman and the team can explain it to you.
Okay.
But what then happens is that having front-loaded or having sold the minority shareholding in Ejapa and having brought this about 500 to 750 to the government of Ghana, this vehicle, Ejapa, is now assigned the residual royalty flows that will be coming, or that ostensibly should have been coming, to MIIF. So MIIF has received our 500 to 750. They have their whole policy on how to utilize that. We can go into that. But now Ejapa is in a position where they will be receiving the residual flows. That residual flow goes into two parts. One part will be guided by what we are talking about as the dividend policy. The other part will now be guided by what I describe as the residual investment policy. So assuming that they were going to get, let's say, 100 million cedis royalties a year, they have only taken about 40 million cedis upfront.
Mm-hmm.
There's another 60 million that is coming. When it comes, the dividend policy, for example, may say, depending on what they agree on, that 30% should be distributed as dividends among the shareholders. If they are distributing that 30, as in 30 of the 60, so 60 is 30-30. If they are distributing that 30 in accordance with the shareholding structure, the government of Ghana still gets majority of that, which comes into either the National Fiscal Accounts or to the MIIF, in this case the MIIF, because that is the body that the law now says receives it.
Okay.
Then the other 30 is what they are going to invest in new mining concessions, be they in Ghana or any other jurisdiction where we believe we can get good returns on investment. I hope I've answered your question.
You have, largely, but I'm sure the CSOs will still have more questions on that. But finally, we've just entered news night. Are the managers and directors of Ejapa not politically exposed persons, and were they not selected through a non-competitive process? While at it, the second question is also related. They say, were the transaction advisors and legal intermediaries not handpicked by the government, and are they also not politically exposed persons?
It is beginning to sound as though any possible, may I say, argument that can be thrown at this deal is being thrown at it. Because first, it starts from a claim that we are registering a company hiding in a tax haven. When you explain that, then there's the argument that, but what is the funds being used for? When you explain that, then now this question comes about, are the persons not politically exposed? There's nothing criminal about being a politically exposed person. I am a politically exposed person. I have family, I have siblings who are politically exposed persons.
But when you are selected in a non-competitive process is the issue for them.
We will come to, well, but first of all, you recall, for example, from yesterday, the claim that has been made is that the people are politically exposed persons simpliciter. There was no talk about even a non-competitive thing. When we explain that these so-called politically exposed persons you are talking about are persons who have had tons of experience dealing with mineral royalty transactions. These are some of the very few persons who have a track record of dealing with mineral royalty transactions. Now the argument changes to what was the competitive nature of their selection.
Okay, well, they may be qualified, but was it open such that those who also are qualified will also get the opportunity?
Let me ask a question. What is the strategy for selecting transaction advisors generally here in Ghana? For selecting legal intermediaries for transactions here in Ghana? What is the structure generally? And has this derogated from the structure in any way? My humble answer to you is that no, it has not derogated. The same process that we take through PPA, whatever, to select transaction advisors, to select legal advisors, is the same process that has been used in selecting these persons. Some persons are happy to raise an issue simply because, like they started, these are politically exposed persons. But these are politically exposed persons, yes, nobody hides that. We put their names out there publicly. But politically exposed persons who are severely experienced in this particular kind of business. And there's nothing criminal, nothing untoward about that. I think that what we need is room to have some more public conversation and more public education about the concept of mineral royalty companies, the structuring of their transactions, and how we are doing this one. If we do that even hypothetically, minus all of this attempt to create controversy, I believe that a lot of people get a deep understanding of it. And then now when questions are raised about some of these specific issues, answering those questions will now fit into a context that is easy for everybody to accommodate. But the more we continue to now throw in all these conspiracy theories, people sitting at home will just be confused.
We are grateful for your time. That's the Information Minister, Kojo Oponkruma. Mr. Ben Boakye, you've heard the Information Minister. You're satisfied with what you've heard?
No, unfortunately not. And I think the posturing that we have to be, quote-unquote, educated about what has happened and not necessarily to have engaged us in the process because Parliament approved it is what has brought us into this conversation that we are having. We are here as policy advocates and making input into government policy. So if government today thinks that all they need to do is to take policy and then come and advise us on why they took the policy, then I think we are reducing democracy into a transaction between the elected and the citizens, and which will be very unfortunate really to happen. I think what we are seeking to do really, if you are deciding to list up to 49% of our royalty, which is a most stable revenue to Ghana on the stock exchange, the Ghanaians are asking, including civil society, how did you come about that decision? Who and who were involved in taking that decision? The governance structure around the transaction to ensure that it is sound, it went through the process that it's required to actually arrive at that decision. What are the options beyond listing on the stock exchange? These are relevant questions that are being asked for us to be sure that it is sound decision that actually will optimize the resources as we are seeking to do. And I think that is where the answers are really not coming for us. And I think that if we halted the process and engaged further, that would bring the answers and ensure that Ghana actually benefits. If you have $200 million revenue stream, and I've heard various numbers, even from government quarters, about how much we are getting from royalty, and it's quite intriguing. If you had $1 billion last year, right, from the big companies alone, that by 5.0, which was the average interest rate, that's about $200 million. This year, the gold price has appreciated about 30%. It's about $2,000 today. So you are likely to get about $250 million for this year. So why would you want to trade that for a $500 million capital injection? Mm-hmm. And by what standard were you able to, value Ghana's royalty to $1 billion? We need to see the facts around that. We need to see the discount factor that was actually used to actually bring Ghana's, royalty to $1 billion, for which we are calling investors to be able to come and buy half of it. Okay. You are hearing $500 to $750 million. If you value your company at $1 billion, how are you going to get $750 million from it? So there are a lot of questions that we need to answer, for us to know why we've taken that decision and how prudent that decision is. Because many people have options, and unless we debate the options, we will not be able to choose what is best. And government is open.
Government says it's open to providing more information.
If you listen, it says it is open to educate us. It's open to provide information, but not to really look at the options that are available. I didn't hear that.
Mr. Bemwache, we'll leave it here for now. This is not the last we're hearing of this matter. He's Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP, and Vodafone. Christmas has come early for all Vodafone Cash subscribers. Your secure and convenient Vodafone Cash is the only network offering you a chance to send money to all networks via Vodafone Cash, free of charge. Yes, you heard me right, free. No other network can give you such an amazing offer except Vodafone Cash. Just send any amount to loved ones as many times as you want on any network without paying any charge. Is zero. So what are you waiting for? Just make payments, show your love, make contributions, send money all you want via Vodafone Cash to all networks for free. Dial *110# to send money for free. Vodafone, the future is exciting. Ready? And George will be sending me some Vodafone Cash shortly. Still to come here on Newsnight, 2 soldiers wounded in bloody land disputes between residents of Domfase near Obum in the Greater Accra region and subject from the Achim traditional area.
The Ghana Armed Forces and the military personnel that have been assigned to protect the Bafua Okumakuma and perpetrating these unlawful actions.
We'll hear from the Obum traditional leadership as helicopter and scores of soldiers are deployed to quell the violence. And tonight, some students in Tamale lament branding of hot meals by parliamentary candidates of the area.
You see, when you go to buy fried rice, the way it's attractive. But this one is like omutu rice ball.
We expected something better than this one.
You shouldn't add politics into like serving food. These are children, for crying out loud. We are not supposed to be put into politics.
Meanwhile, schools in the Saboba district of the Northern region are yet to receive their meals.
When it gets to the middle part of the learning, we don't concentrate because our stomachs are crying for food.
Some of us were orphans, we cannot be able to eat and come. But because we were told that we'll be given food, we're very happy.
We have details in business.
Bank of Ghana institutes measures to prevent another crisis in the banking sector. Key among them is off-site monitoring system as well as capital verification.
And President Akufo-Addo unmoved by criticism of his handling of the banking sector crisis as the Bank of Ghana affirms 100% payment of depositors of the 7 collapsed banks.
This week, based on the bits and offers outstanding.
We have that and more. I apologize for that here on Newsnight. Do join us with your thoughts and comments via WhatsApp is 0244 340 437. We'll take a quick break here on Newsnight. We'll be right back.
Hey, Charlie, my network is really killing me. I have to pay my uncle